Wow. This episode, we actually are going to do a follow-up one because we didn't even get through half of the questions that we wanted to. Like, such a fascinating story. And I don't know, it seems very odd to be talking to a financial advisor who has had so many debt issues. But I think it's also really comforting and nice to know that we all go through shit. We all have our own financial journey. And Liz Gillette, who we're about to talk to, has the most heartwarming, sad, inspiring, amazing story. And
she was in $125,000 worth of US dollar debt.
Yeah.
And she talks about her childhood. She talks about how she ended up in so much debt. She talks about where she is now and her perception of money and building wealth. And I loved the bit when we talked about relationship dynamics and how to navigate with your partner, how you talk about money and navigate that together. I found that part really fascinating.
And she could have gone either way with all that debt, and I think it's quite amazing and hats off to her that she's chosen this pathway to become a financial advisor and help other people not get in the situations that she was in. So without further ado, Liz Gillette.
Okay, Liz, we would like to ask you, how much debt were you in and what was the compilation of that debt?
Yes, I had $110,000 worth of debt here in US dollars. $90,000 of it was student loans from getting my undergraduate degree, my 4-year university degree. $5,000 was medical bills from my injuries as a volleyball player when I was in college that I didn't know about. And then $15,000 was a car loan so that I could get my first car right out of school.
That's just wild.
Honestly, I was going to say, what sort of degree do you do for $90,000 US dollars? Like, are you a pilot slash lawyer slash doctor? What's going on there?
All of the above?
All of them. I'm very, very skilled. No, it's just a business degree, a marketing business degree. I went to a very expensive private school, and that even included having scholarships, both academic and athletic. So it's just how much I walked out with.
And so that's a pretty kind of, I guess, average level of debt for a pretty typical degree. Like, how does anyone fund that without going into debt to that amount? As either scholarships or your parents pay, is that effectively the two only options?
Yes, that's the idea, is that right? So I've got a couple kids, and so I certainly would be approaching it in a different manner. I went to a very expensive private school and I wouldn't take any of it back. It got me a fantastic degree. I met my husband. I got great friends, lots of positive things to come out of it. But ultimately, it was just not enough aid. They believed that my parents could support much more than they could. So all the student loans fell onto me rather than a mix of cash flowing some of it, mixed with student loans, mixed with scholarship. It just ended up being primarily debt after those 4 years.
It's so unfair that to get educated or to go and get a degree, which, I mean, you don't need now. I know everyone has different opinions on that, but the fact that just to get a degree, you're going into nearly $100,000 worth of
which can take years to
your
pay
whole
back.
life for some people. Also, can we just skip sideways to the unknown medical bills? How do you not know about $5,000 US dollars of medical bills?
Yeah, so that doesn't happen as often for other people. I'm just very lucky.
Yay!
Yay, medical bills.
Yeah, it's so great. So I didn't know what a debt collector was until I'm getting angry phone calls of, you owe us this money. So I sustained an injury, a shoulder injury. I was a hitter, right, in college. And those bills went unpaid. And then they racked up fees. And then my parents were dealing with their own financial duress. So it was overwhelming for them. So they were both hypothetically and literally stuffed into a drawer and never opened those bills. So then they didn't go to the hospital. And then all of a sudden a debt collection agency picked it up and said, you owe 3 times more that amount. And so I had no idea until I received the first phone call. And then I had to inquire with my parents and say, what is this? And I had to learn that world of what debts do you pay first, right? What happens if I don't pay this? My car, if I would not pay my car loan, then they've got something they can take. They could take my actual car, and I needed it for my job. So, I had to decide. They can't
take your arm, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean,
winning. Wow. Did you feel mad at your parents? How did that whole conversation go? Because I feel like I'd be quite annoyed. I know that, of course, you're not going to be mad at your parents, and also you
It was your
needed
injury.
it. It was your injury. But you're also a kid, so it's kind of also their responsibility. Like, how did that play out for you emotionally and with your dynamic with your parents?
So it was really interesting. I certainly knew we were in financial duress. So we experienced a lot. Right before I headed off to school, we were evicted from our home, and I'm one of 5 kids. And so at that stage in my life, my heart broke for them and what they were experiencing. I was so much more focused on, right now that I got my degree, how can I get my job? How can I start making money? And how can I send it home to help my family? So there was certainly a portion of me that was so frustrated that like, but wait, I wanted to start with a clean slate. And this is like anything but a clean slate. But I had so much, sadness and empathy for what they were going through that it got squelched. The frustration got squelched by just oh God, they're dealing with this too. They're doing the best that they can. So it was through many years of therapy that I kind of fell in a little bit of a middle ground of like, well, wait a second, there were things that should not have happened, but they were certainly doing their best.
And I feel like with parents, most parents, that would be the last resort, would be not paying their child's medical bills. And they must have been hard for them as well. But hats off for you for getting through that.
And also having 5 kids, did everyone come to the party? Was all 5 kids like, all right, how can we help our parents get out of debt? Was everyone sort of like head down, bum up, let's all try and pay this off?
Yeah, so we had a wide range. At that point, I had 2 brothers in college. So a lot of my parents' ability to be able to take on loans. And then I got a 3rd brother in college. I'm the 4th kid. So there was nothing left, even loans, for them to be able to help me right by the time that I got there. So it was a very interesting mix. My younger sister was 11. So she's living in the house and feeling everything that is occurring. And then the 3 older brothers, 2 of them were like graduated and doing their own thing. So it was an interesting mix, but we often say that we experienced very different childhoods. Me and my younger sister versus the 3 boys. So I was trying to get an athletic scholarship, which was part of mine, so that I could go to college, knowing that there weren't many resources left, by the time I was trying to get there.
You've obviously done a huge amount of therapy and you're now helping people to not be in that situation. But I'm wondering if initially, was that quite a toxic relationship that you had with money and the idea of having a family? And I guess how bad was it and how did it affect you?
Yeah, it was a major component of me, of the way that I saw the world. So when I worked through my debt, at that point, money was the scariest thing in the world to me. And all I knew was that I will make every sacrifice known to man to make this happen. So I cut out every membership, every perk, everything I could do. I remember there was a day that I moved like $2.28 in my bank account so that I'd pay off the debt sooner. I mean, I was obsessed. And that's what worked for me, was like, it was very fear driven. So, right? Like very fear driven just to get myself out of it. And that worked, but certainly I knew I didn't want to live in that space forever. So growing up, and for a lot of people, money is security. A home is a place you can always come back to. Not one day you're told we need to pack up our stuff in 1 hour. We need to leave. We're being kicked out. We can't come back, right? So
at the time as a kid, I think there's a lot of things that can be considered traumatic, no matter how big or small they are, because as a kid, you can't process your own emotions. You don't really understand what's going on. And you can't even really compare your situation to other people's because you've got such a you're in an echo chamber of the people that you know. I can't imagine dealing with that at such a young age. I'm sending like love and hugs to little Liz because that would have been a really hard
and
thing
hats
to
off
deal
for
with.
you for like addressing it and working on it and trying to reframe that narrative around money as, not a scary thing, but actually like a really empowering thing. And everything you're doing now, it's almost like
you could run in the opposite direction and totally rack up debt for your entire life because that's all you've ever been taught. It's amazing that you've stepped sideways. Sorry, let's go back. So you got to a point where you were basically having to leave your house.
Yeah, we when I was 17 years old, we'd been getting notices on our door, right? Like you need to be able to pay your mortgage or else. We'd get statements in the mail, and that was from the bank, those overdraft statements over and over. We had a car repossessed in the middle of the night. It was 3 a.m. and I heard this noise and they were pulling off our family car. And so I was trying to understand as much as I could from 14, 15, and 16, I would say, is when it was really rough, to the point that when we got evicted at 17, I'm thinking, there's nowhere to go but up, right? At this point, because so many things had been taken from us and water had been shut off and they were just trying to keep ahead. And debt is ultimately what got them down. My dad was out of work and mom is a Catholic school teacher with 5 kids. It just, the math didn't make sense, right? And so I'd been watching it and observing it, but I was at school one day and my mom was a teacher at my high school and she pulled me into her back room. She was a math teacher and she said, we have to go
ironic.
home. Yeah. Yes. My dad's master's is in economics and my mom is a math teacher. I know. That's why money is so fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's not about not knowing what to do. It's about actually doing it. So she pulled me into this back room and she said, we have to go home. They're taking the house. And she was crying.
Wow.
And I knew that I instantly had to rise to the occasion. And I said, it's going to be okay. Let's get back there. And so we drove back together in silence, like from the high school. We had to leave during the day. And there was just people all throughout the house, like my entire childhood house. And they are just grabbing things and talking. And one of my most core memories is, I don't know if you guys do that here, but where you have height charts on the wall where you show as like kids get taller. And there was someone just taking a fresh roller with white paint and just painting over our memories in like one quick dash. And it meant nothing to them. And to us, that was everything. That was like our life. And someone else is running through and they're like, this place is a mess. We're going to have to get it fixed up. I mean, the way they were treating how challenging it was for us was just absolutely horrible. And my mom was very put together, strong, never let anyone see her sweat. And this is when I got to see her just crumble as you would. And I had to pick up my 11-year-old sister from school and explain that we can't go home. And she's just sobbing and screaming and doesn't understand. And I didn't have an answer of where we're going. I saw the cycle of debt and what it could do to people. And I certainly didn't want to repeat that for myself. So, and then it kind of got to a place where I said, okay, this is in my control. You know, I can do this if I work hard, if I make the right decisions. And so, yeah, it was that empowerment journey that led me to realize I want to, help other people, no matter how dark it is at that time, like hang in there. If you're willing to do the work, you can get to the other side. So that's what kind of got me into this field 10 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm captivated. I kept looking to my see Fix crying. I was like, yep, she's getting classy.
I was like, wow. It just makes me think you never know what people are going through financially. There could have been people at your school seeing you get taken out of class and just being like, oh, she's just gone home for the afternoon. You just have no idea people's situations that they're going through and what they're having to live through day to day. I don't know. Yeah, it's just fascinating. Everyone's financial journey is so different and stems from so many aspects of their life, whether it's their upbringing, what they've been through in their lives, their parents. Like, it's just so many facets of it. It's crazy.
I was actually thinking the main thing that came up for me when you were explaining was I think I'm quite judgmental of people that have ended up in lots of debt. And it's a really subconscious thing, which it sounds so nasty to even vocalize this when you've just been so honest about such a heartbreaking situation. But I don't think I realized the judgment that I held because I haven't seen that debt cycle firsthand. Touch wood, I hope I'm never in that situation. And as you say, your parents were trying their best. It wasn't as though they were being out there taking themselves on holidays to Fiji and being really frivolous with their money. So from someone that's seen that and who obviously works with people to help them get out of debt, can you explain for those who might also be judgmental of debt how it works and how it's such a slippery slope?
Because I would have thought the same as well with Liz. It's like, oh, well, you got yourself into debt, from spending frivolously or whatever. And it's
kind
like,
of can judge really quite badly from the outset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your guys' honesty. I've been in that exact place, right? That's why I said it was a journey with my parents. So at first I'm just pitying and empathizing. And then as I worked through the journey, I realized like, I should have been able to be the kid. I shouldn't have had to feel like the grown up, right? And I went through that journey with them. And there was a point where I was like, people just weren't willing to sacrifice. And I would explain to my mom, cancel the movie channel. I had all the answers. Yeah, for my family, it was the expenses went to supporting growing a family that large and 5 kids. And my dad was a banker. Again, the irony. And my mom was this math teacher and an outstanding both in colleges and in high schools and everything. And then when the banking crisis happened, my dad was out of work and it was like truly on and off for about 3 years. And he was our breadwinner. And so mom picked up a second job and a third job. And it's just like we were hitting those phases, kids entering college and we weren't in any fancy private school. Like it really wasn't that. It was just truly a matter of like, your emergency fund only takes you so far. right? There has to be that spot. And then dad's trying to get additional work and depression kicks in and he's upset and he's out of work. And so like I don't know many households that could absorb someone being out of work. Their primary breadwinner for about 3 years. So there just was so much there that mom was working hard to kind of get him back on his feet. And obviously, if you can invest in yourself or in your company, right? And take out debt because on the other end, you're going to get this like additional reward. Absolutely. It's a good thing to do. But certainly debt just allows people to play along with money that they don't have. And I'll tell you, you can play that game for years before you get made. If you can invest in yourself or in your company, right? And take out debt because on the other end, you're going to get this like additional reward. Absolutely. It's a good thing to do. But certainly debt just allows people to play along with money that they don't have. I'll tell you, you can play that game for years before you get made. Credit card debt, when I see clients like that, when you get into that where you don't realize you're actually in the red every month, that's where I think the average person kind of gets stuck is it's not an immediate like, oops, 3 months later, I realized I have a problem. We're talking like 3 years later.
So did they basically extend credit cards for 3 years and not pay it back because they couldn't afford to? So it was almost like, okay, we're going to try and maintain the kids' school and food and a roof over our head, etc. And then
when we get a job, we'll pay it back. But
is that kind of what happened?
Yes. Yeah. All of it. Any 401k savings that they had were drained. They went through everything. And the reason why the house was taken is they had gotten a second mortgage, right? So there was equity in the house. And so any place where they had money, they were trying to take from. So yep, your car loan, you have a loan on it and you're trying to decide, should you keep the water running or should you pay for the car? You keep the water running and then they end up taking the car. So yes, that was it. So all the credit cards were maxed out. There was literally no available place to go for additional funds. Yeah, money struggles are nothing to take lightly in the way that they impact you, both as an adult and a child.
What would have been the alternative though?
That's what I was thinking. Like,
there's really no alternative apart from going into debt and having the expectation that, okay, when I do get employed or I have enough income, I'll start paying it back.
Well, I mean, as a financial advisor, looking at that situation as horrible as it might be to say out loud, if you had seen the situation when it was unfolding, what kind of advice would you have given your parents?
Oh God, I've thought about that question a million times. A couple things. Communication-wise, it was really challenging going through that, and yet we weren't allowed to talk about it. Now, mind you, our generation is a lot more open to that, but I was craving for like a Tiny Tim household where the family gathers and says like, here's the deal. Dad's out of work. We're all going to make it work. We're going to do this. Like it was happening under the surface and it was bubbling. And when you would ask a question as a kid of like, isn't that bad that our bank account has not enough money, be like, don't worry about it, I got it. Don't worry about it, I got it. So I'd say from that side, communication and honesty and transparency, to the point that I think I drill it into my kids so bad. I'm pretty sure I'm overcorrecting in that category of talking about money.
Do you talk to your kids about money and about financial situations and everything? Because I think that would be quite hard as a parent.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I mean,
protecting them, but also wanting to be like, I've got this sorted. You shouldn't have to worry. You're a child.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was about to say. Like, do you think that would have almost been worse in terms of the worry that you would be bearing and the weight on your shoulders as a 14-year-old if you knew that your parents were struggling that much?
I knew they were struggling. It was just more painful that we couldn't talk about it. It was right there, right? Like it was right there. So yes, and that's a great question because I've been thinking about that with my kids. Like, you guys, I have to tell you, this literally happened yesterday, and then I promise we can get on track. My daughter comes home with this self-portrait from school, and the prompt was, I am special because, okay? And she shows this to me, and my jaw drops on the ground because it says, I am special because I have a lot of money.
You're like, oh gosh, not what I intended. And
I couldn't even smile. And she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, and all I can think is like,
you're like, well done, honey. Well done. Well done.
On my top 3 things of people I can't tolerate, it's entitled people. So I'm just like stumbling over my words. And I was like, I don't understand. Can you tell me? She's 6 years old. What happened? What did the teacher say? And she said, well, our teacher said to us, what's something that makes you unique? And Mom, not a lot of people have money.
Bless her little heart.
But it's also blessed that like the kids don't know that money's something you don't talk about. They're like, well,
So
we do have
true.
lots of money. So mum talks about money. It's just like
Yeah.
so matter of fact. Kids, like I love their
emotional regulation or like awareness for what is and isn't appropriate.
Yeah.
PC just goes out the window. And
Yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
I've got money, so I'm special.
Yeah. You go, girl.
So can we go back to your advice that you would give your parents?
Yes.
So say they'd been in that situation, the first thing that you would recommend would be communication. What would be some of the other ways that they could have dealt with it better, for lack of a better word?
I probably would have drawn down in a different order as an advisor, recognizing where do you pull from first before you go into debt? Should you look at your 401k? The only change that I've ever been able to identify is downsizing our house. Maybe there was a portion of them was trying to keep up with the Joneses or keep appearances, right? Because that's very hard to manage that socially when all of that's going on for your family. But that's the only thing I've ever been able to identify. But I mean, if a lender was willing to offer it to them, if a family or a friend, I mean, they were pulling at anything they could. So sooner rather than later, downsizing the house so you have that equity, so you have that control, instead of it being taken from you because you couldn't keep up with those mortgage payments. So that would have been the only thing as an advisor that I could have seen.
I've got a controversial question.
Oh, here she goes.
Do you think there's a level of responsibility and awareness that we need, more so than we currently have in society as a whole, around how many kids can you realistically afford?
Controversial. Yeah.
Listening to you guys learn about this, you were literally walking the journey that I walked, experiencing it. So if I had $1 for every time I was like, why did they have 5 kids? So like, yes, I think your bigger question of like, is it reasonable to consider and make these decisions about growing our family based off of the amount of financial resources we have? I wasn't willing to walk down the aisle until I was debt free. So you're talking to the right person who's like, don't make these decisions unless you have the money. So yeah, I think it's a really challenging one. I do. I think especially in the world of growing your family, and so many people are met with challenges and getting those families to happen, and unexpected babies and twins and, all of these things. Yeah, I think that even back then, even when it was a little more common to have the primary breadwinner and the woman primarily making significantly less, trying to send all 5 of us to college, I don't think that math was ever really going to make sense from the beginning. And there were quite a few like private schools mixed in and all of that. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable thing for someone as they grow their family to just think about how that lifestyle changes with each child that you add, assuming it's a lifestyle change and not like a foundational, we are truly running out of money, right? For most people who have a better handle of their finances, it would be, okay, are we willing to make this lifestyle shift down as we bring a new member into the family? That's kind of how I've thought about it with each kid that I've added to mine.
Yeah, I guess it's more about financial planning as well, and being like, can we financially afford this extra child? Yeah, and still have that life that we want.
I've been doing my budget recently, which I've sent Victoria and she's not got back to me on yet. But
I'm like,
it's fine. I know you're busy. We'll take this offline.
Part of me's like, I need to do my own budget, girl.
Because I just cannot understand how I keep fucking it up, excuse the language. But it is just, I'm so optimistic. I'm like, oh no, I can make it work. But I think when it comes to having kids or when there's other people involved, it's a different level of planning and awareness that you need to have with your money, because you're not actually, this isn't just you that's suffering from the stress of the finances of running out of your weekly pay. You have actual humans relying on you to put food on the table, to keep the lights on, to have running water and a roof over their head.
There's also a lot of unknowns with having a child and how much they're going to cost and what expenses you're going to have. When it is just yourself or you and your partner, you kind of know your spending habits. But when you throw in a curveball of a child, you could plan till the cows come home and still not have it right.
Totally. I work with clients in their 30s and 40s. It is one of the most fascinating challenges. That's why I love it, because it's always changing, right? Typically, financial planning and wealth management has been for retirees, and they come in and they're going to stop working. How can I pay myself out of the buckets of money that I've saved? That's typically where it's landed. The real challenge is like, I changed my job and then she's pregnant and then we bought a new house and what's happening? And I'm in this really stressful job and I make good money, but we have deep conversations about money and we say, you know what would it take for you to take a lower paying job and have more time with your family? You know, what do you want to do? What are you not achieving? And so, yeah, it's a huge challenge because we all have competing priorities. Very few of us have unlimited resources, certainly myself included. So it's just, where do you put them? Where do you put them? And how do you feel really satisfied getting the most that you can, you know, out of your dollars? That's what keeps me coming back.
I want to jump back to what you were talking about around communication and communication in the relationship sense.
Especially if you work with lots of couples. I was actually about to ask a similar question.
And just like how important those conversations are, when you should have them, you know, how to make them not awkward and all of that.
Because financial compatibility is something we've talked about a lot, not only within friendships, but also in romantic relationships. How do you encourage clients to approach those conversations and at what point of the relationship? I mean, can we dive into that? Because I know there's a huge amount of our audience who probably either haven't had those conversations or maybe they haven't gone very well.
So the biggest thing I would say, a lot of people come in with the question, should we blend our bank accounts? Should we have them separate? Should we have them together? Should we see each other spending? And they say, I don't like seeing each other spending because then when they get me a Christmas gift, I know that they got the Christmas gift and, you know, they like their sense of independence and all of that. So what I would say is I've seen when couples do it well, it actually, those formalities don't matter whether you are sharing a bank account or whether you're not sharing a bank account. And here's why. Sometimes I have couples where they have their separate accounts, but like monthly they sit down and they talk about their finances and they talk about their goals and they work with an advisor and they get on the same page. And so if that's going to happen, then it really doesn't matter whether you're sharing accounts. And then I have couples where everything is joint. They can see each other's money, but the one person doesn't even know how to log in.
That sounds like us.
Vic, what's the password? Have you changed it again?
And then I go to log in and it's like, oh, your password's been locked out because you've tried too many times. I'm like, oh my God, Sophie Hall, right? Oh my gosh.
I am going to be the reason you go grey, I think.
I already am.
Oh my God. So I think it's interesting. Like at the end of the day, it's just, I think it's about transparency. So for me and my husband, we share our accounts and he likes to spend it in a very different way, right? Like on the fun money, he spends it in a very different way than me. I hate golf. And
I was literally about to say, does he spend it on golf? That's so funny.
It would grind my gears. I almost wouldn't want to share a bank account because I'd be able to see all this like golf. And
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say it's really helpful when couples have like a certain number where you say, hey, if either of us is going to spend over X dollars, we should consult the other. And like, that's a really helpful thing for couples to do, right? Again, I don't care whether you're married or not married, but if you're making joint financial decisions together and creating like a joint plan together, then it's really helpful to say, if that trigger amount is $200, you know, anytime someone's going to spend over $200, bounce it by your partner so there's no questions and concerns.
They'd be getting texts from me all day.
Hi, can I spend $5 on some new stationery? Hi, can I please spend $55 on a new...
No.
Yeah. It would always be, and I'd just be like, you do whatever, because I just totally trust you. It's like I'm the problem child in the relationship.
Well, and it's funny, you know, it used to be about like, are you a spender or a saver? As if there's only two
So
categories.
true.
Yeah.
And you know, and you guys alluded to it earlier, like when it comes to money, there's way more there. There's like people's relationship of someone gets down and they start spending. And then, you know, the other person finds themselves like falling. At late night Amazon, like
You're an online shopper. No, you're totally.
I know, but you're a late night like, oh, I'll just sign up to Hinge Plus.
Oh my God, so true. Look, we both have our vices.
Yes. Yeah, we're not perfect.
No, we're not perfect.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So I guess my advice for couples would be talk early and often, right, about it, because, and to that point of like when in the relationship, damn, that's hard to give feedback on, you know, as to like when
First
you guys
date
are really starting
or
to.
second, I mean.
Vic would go in, I reckon. She'll be like, right, I'm committing to these conversations early. She'll be like, no, it's date one, hi.
And I don't know why I don't get date two. But.
But what about when they start to split their finances? Do you think maybe when they start sharing the costs of dinner or sharing bills or moving in together, even if they're not paying, if you're overlapping with payments and it's not just like, I'll get it, you get it, maybe that's a time to start talking about it. So if you're
to talk about joining accounts.
Or like if you're starting to go on holidays together and you're spending money together a lot. And of course you should be encouraging these conversations early in terms of what do you value spending money on? Where do you want to be? What do you want to do? Or what debt do you have? All those kinds of things I think you do need to know about when you go. Because imagine if someone's in $500,000 worth of debt and you don't know. But is there a general rule of thumb, like, okay, at this point, make sure you're having these conversations?
Yeah, I would say as the relationship's progressing and when you're planning out your future together, most of my couples really appreciate starting with the fun stuff. Like you said, like we're taking a trip together, and instead of Venmoing each other back and forth 8 million times, maybe this is a good time to, set up like a joint account that we both have money out of our paycheck each month and it goes into this joint account for us to do our spending. Because that happens before you're even living together, right? And then living together is another point where people say, okay, even if we want to have our stuff separate, we very much need to have another like joint bank account where we can throw money in and pay rent out of that. And so, what it typically looks like is a commitment to, even if your money is separate, you've got this one joint account that each of you contribute equally to. And that helps. And then some couples come in, right? So if you fast forward and they've been together for a bit and you've got someone who makes significantly more than the other, they will come in at ratios and be like, okay, well, I want to put 70% towards the rent. They don't say that. The 30% person says, I want to put 30% towards the rent because I make 30% of this household's income. And the other one says, great, I'll do 70. So, it really, that's what's interesting is as long as you're talking about it. But yes, I would say once you are planning joint things together, it's a great way to dip your toe in the water of like, let's both put money towards this.
Well, what advice would you give for couples navigating conversations around like, I guess, lifestyle creep? And also if you are in a relationship where there's quite a disparity in incomes, having different lifestyles and different choices, I think.
You're asking for a friend?
Yeah. No, but like those conversations must get
it's hard.
frustrating, or like for both parties to be like, I can't afford this, and then be with someone that's like, oh, they can never afford this. I don't know. It's just like money kind of permeates through all parts of relationships in terms of where you go on holiday, what car you hire when you're on holiday.
We had a minor dispute on a joint holiday where I wanted the tiny shitty Honda that, it was like the lowest budget. And Vic's like, there's a convertible Audi. I was like, don't even think about it. Like, we're definitely not going there. Unless you're shouting the difference, this is not happening.
I guess, that's probably the answer then. But
you selfish bitch. Like, so she's like, my partner wants to go to McDonald's and I want to go to a Michelin star. So like, he's going to go to McDonald's, but I'll go Michelin.
No, I meant, no, I'd pay for the Michelin.
That's what I mean. Oh, yeah. I think that's the middle ground we've got to come. I mean, sorry, let's ask the advisor.
Sorry.
Liz, could you please weigh in here before this gets any more heated? Friendship or romantic, how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So first I would say to your point earlier, like reminding yourself not to come from a judgy place. I'm telling you, I did it for many, many years. Again, if clients weren't willing to sacrifice the way I was willing to sacrifice, I had thoughts on it. I would place judgment on it. And so what I've really got into with a place with people is that classic, you guys know it, and I've listened to your podcast, that like put your money where your values are. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing is like respecting your partner. Now I roll my eyes every time I see golf, but I technically am respecting him enough not to like step in and be like, that's inappropriate. And so I would say definitely like doing your damn best not to come in with judgment, because again, it is not spender versus saver. It is so much more nuanced than that. Honestly, my other piece of advice, I don't care if you're talking to a financial advisor or you're asking a third person to be in the room, but just, it's really nice to have someone just like hear both sides, right? There are people who are like financial therapists and all of that. It's like, I recognize that with my clients, that I think they appreciate that I can be there and be in the middle and hear this matters to this partner, this matters to this partner. I can just make sure neither of the voices get squashed. Like that part is really important to me, is there's often a more dominant voice in a relationship. I just have to make sure that both of them are getting it met. And then I get to be the bad guy. It stops their argument, right? Like it stops their argument. So that's, again, whether it's a financial advisor or just having someone like listen and hear and kind of dissect, because everyone's coming in with emotions heightened. Typically when you're talking about money, here's what I will say that I could scream from a mountaintop a million times. I don't care if one person is making more, the other person's staying at home, anything in between. When you see a lack of respect for the other person based off of the amount of money that they are bringing in, that to me is where you get in trouble. There's been periods in my life with my husband where I'm the breadwinner, he's the breadwinner, this back and forth. And at no point did either of us use it as a weapon or treat each other like, well, I'm making the decision and I have the final call. So when I see that and a couple is sitting across from me and it is like this unspoken language that one person thinks they have an upper hand on the entire family or the two of them, their finances, just because they bring in more, I'm actually a big advocate for both voices matter just as much. You're both in the relationship. So that's always scary to me when I see that.
I love that.
I know, but can I ask though, in your dynamic, you're saying you swap between breadwinner and not the breadwinner, whatever the opposite of that is. So there's probably respect there in the fact that you can earn more than him. This is again quite controversial, but I think there's an inherent and underlying belief that the ability to earn money means you are successful, you are better, you are more than. That exists. And I know that we all pretend that it doesn't, but it does. So how do you then keep the respect and equal if that breadwinner is always the same person? How does that not become imbalanced or, a power play?
And particularly with females who
often will have to stay home
and they're doing a lot of non-monetary work in the household.
Or maybe they have kids early and therefore they don't have a chance to build up the capacity to earn more because they take that time out and then when they go back, they're never able to earn more than their partners. I just would love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's all about contribution. So you need both members of the couple to recognize that you bring financial resources to the table. He or she brings the ability to keep the household running and make sure that your social calendars are managed and this. It's the whole unpaid labor, fair play, like all of that, right? Which I'm sure all of us are pretty passionate about. So if they don't see that vision of like your contribution matters, this is what you bring to either our relationship or our family, then even if someday that person goes out and gets a job and starts making more, there's still going to be that dynamic of like, well, it doesn't matter because I have this, sum of money. I bring this in. And some of my couples, it's like that. There won't be flip-flopping between breadwinner and not breadwinner. I get pretty feisty in those meetings when I see someone talking down to someone else based off of how much they bring to the table. I like those sessions because it's an opportunity for me to, politely point out all of the other things that person's doing to make sure that they can be in that higher paying job, right? Sometimes someone's in a career that they're following their heart and it's in the nonprofit sector and they're making a huge difference. And the other person went more of the corporate route and they're bringing in the big dollars. And if you look at it as like, I'm not going to do as many dishes or I'm not going to help with the kids as much because this is happening. Yeah, they don't last in my office very long because I make my opinion very, very well known there. So yeah, I think just recognize the contribution in whatever way it shows up.
It's also an interesting shift, I think, that you have to make consciously. Because if you had for example, if we thought of you, Vic, and you stayed in funds management and you were earning more than, to be honest, probably a lot of partners, unless they worked in similar spaces, it is one of the higher paying jobs. And so you would have to actively really, really value them as a person and what they're bringing. Yeah. And I do think that it's something you have to consciously think about. I think for me, the number one thing would be it's easy to fob off, cleaning and looking after kids is cheap. By the way, I'm not saying I believe that, but the real beauty of having your partner stay at home is the idea that your kids are being infused with the person that you love the most, energy, day in, day out. Their patience, their teachings, they're pouring themselves as a person into that tiny human, which is priceless. It's not like, I could pay a babysitter $14 an hour. It's like, well, how would your kids turn out? So it is something that I don't think has been totally deconstructed in a way for both sides, regardless of who's at home and who's the breadwinner. So I think that's a really amazing thing for people to think about in relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the most important job you could ever have. Right? Like, I've been a working mom through my whole career, and I look at it, and women, when they excel at home, and that's where they're at their best, and they're bringing everything they can to their family, and they're feeling satisfied instead of burnt out. Yeah, I think it's way more often that we see women not getting the credit they deserve when they're at home and they're with, the screaming kids all day and managing it all. So yeah, that is exactly well said, Soph, that it's like their partner should look at that and go, thank God, like they're around you. They're getting every bit of your being, every bit of your energy. And that's where the partner doesn't come home and be like, well, I worked all day, I'm going to sit down on the couch. It's like, she worked all day.
Yeah. Because it's easy to get in that spiral of like, not tit for tat, but like, well, I've done this and you've done that. And you could easily get in that spiral, especially when you're both absolutely exhausted.
Well, I just think the whole splitting of the housework when after work is, it's such an interesting one. And I've seen a lot of dynamics with friends in relationships where it's kind of surprised me, to be honest, like the imbalance. And it's as you get older and you start going into relationships with different life experience and seeing friends in different dynamics, it definitely makes me realize if I end up in a relationship where we're lucky enough to have kids, that would be an absolute deal breaker for me if someone wasn't coming to the party with equal cooking, cleaning, helping around the house. If
I'd turn into
I'd
God
be scared of you. Liz, I'm so aware of the time, and like we could honestly sit here and talk to you for so long. I was wondering if maybe we could chat to you, because a lot of the questions that we prepared that we would love to ask are around managing your personal finances, how to get out of debt, how to avoid getting into debt in the first place. Like there's so many technical things that I think would be really helpful for people. Can we arrange a time to get you on again another time? Because
I feel like this is a two-part.
Yeah, this is a two-part. But thank you so much for being so open about, because I think it doesn't matter how much therapy you do on things that are traumatic when you grow up as an adult, to offload and talk to them again with strangers. Yeah, you kind of forget how much that brings up. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, you guys, the pleasure is mine. Thanks so much. I look forward to the next conversation.
Thank you so much for listening to Raising the Curve. These conversations are designed to teach you everything that you need to know to be better with your money, from saving to investing to talking to your friends about your salaries.
And if you liked what you heard, we would love it if you could hit the subscribe button, please.
Yes,
or
please.
Better yet, leave a review. It only takes 5 seconds, and it would really make our week, our year, our month.
Okay, lots of love. See you soon.
Bye.